What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Forge to Win podcast. I have TJ Kosen with me today, and I'm actually really excited to unpack his story personally and his journey in real estate. How he's transitioned from commercial to single family, some things that he's unpacked in his life that has really changed his business mindset, and how he's thriving and achieving freedom in his own life. You know, one thing we like to talk about here on the podcast is that journey to freedom and what that looks like for each individual. You know, freedom is different for different people, and I really like the story that I've heard from TJ. We've connected a few times now recently, and I've really gotten to know him. And he's got just a really cool story. We had him on our other podcast, Real Estate Power Play, and now I'm excited to kind of dig in a little bit deeper, get to know him a little bit more, and have you guys along that journey as well. So, TJ, man, how are you doing today?
Dude, Ronald, thanks so much for having me. I'm actually doing fantastic. It's great to talk to you again.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to jump into your story. And for those who are different, don't know you, haven't listened to your stuff. I know you're on the internet. You've done different podcasts. You're pretty well known in the Dallas market. Dude, what kind of give me a picture of your business now? I want to go back and hear your story, but what's your main business model today? What's your team look like? Who is TJ today?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity. I like that you mentioned the freedom thing, because if I could just touch on that just really quick as an intro to why I kind of built the business the way I did. In other masterminds I've been in, or different things, I always hear people talking about financial freedom as a way to stop working or to go spend more time with their kids or their family or whatever the heck. And I noticed, like I think my wife noticed, when I take an entire weekend off, and especially, God forbid, there's a 3-day weekend, I am so damn grumpy by the end of Sunday. If I haven't gotten out and done something that I thought was productive in the business or moving a direction I want to go, that I'm just like, I'm a pain in the butt to deal with. My wife's like, get out of the house, go play golf, go bike ride, go do something, because I can't stand you here. So for me, freedom isn't about not working. It's about working on the stuff that I like working on, and then building a business that I enjoy having, as opposed to having, I don't have an objective in terms of like a net worth objective. I have a direction objective, I think, that we want to take the business in. And, we have obviously incremental steps to get there, more units, more deals, more marketing spend, all that good stuff.
Unpack a directional objective. Why is that different than like a goal? For people, because I think that's I really like that, right? And the question that I ask myself is, who do I want to be and how do I want to make my money, rather than, I want so many units. Right. Unpack kind of that idea of the directional side for me.
And so I think you pick incremental or intermittent goals, right? So maybe if you're working out, like I did after the accident that we'll talk about, I had a goal literally of 1, walking first, and then 2, lifting more, and then 3 was like deadlifting 3 plates. And that was my end goal. But my journey was about how to get there. And the benefit is really about taking the journey, about how to get to an incremental goal along the way. Because let's be honest, if you talked about climbing a mountain as a metaphor last time we talked. If you're climbing a mountain, once you get to the top, you don't know if it's the top, because realistically, you can only see over the next hill. I used to climb mountains in California. I remember I climbed Mount Shasta with my dad once. And I'd been up the mountain 3 other times. This is my 4th time with him. And I went up solo once after that, a couple of years later. And I lied to him. Like, I had to lie to him, because he says, oh, where's the top? It's like, oh, dude, it's like right over that thing right there. I was like, okay, no problem. I got that. And then we get there. It's like, doesn't look like the top. It's like, oh, my bad. I hadn't been here for a couple of years. I forgot. It's up over that one over there. And like, he knew I was doing it, and then when you get to the top, it's cloudy and you can't see shit. So then you look around like, well, I don't know where I want to go. You don't even know if you're at the top. Now, obviously, if you're at the mountain, you're at the top. But in your life, you don't really know where you want to go until you get as far as you can see. And then when you get there, there's nothing wrong with looking around and being like, I think maybe I want to kind of go that way and adjust that direction. Try not to go backwards any more than you can help. But even that, there's nothing wrong necessarily with taking a couple steps back, kind of reevaluating this path that you can see, and seeing this one over here and being like, well, maybe that's not so bad. And I think we have to make constant incremental adjustments to our business based on the inputs that we have from where we're at.
Dude, I really like that, because it's more about, as you're going, what do you see? And a lot of times we don't really know, right? We've kind of got our head down. We have this objective, but if it's too high, if it seems too big, we'll almost self-sabotage ourselves, where it's like, I'm moving in this direction. That hill, even in life, it's like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think it's so powerful being in groups of other people that are in a similar journey as us, right? It's like, when you're around, there's that saying of the 5 people you hang out the most with, you become more like. One of the reasons why that's so powerful is you're sitting there and one guy's like, oh yeah, like what you're dealing with, bro, that's not a big deal. And then all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, yeah, man, I thought it was a big deal. No, it's not a big deal. I reached out to a pretty high profile guy, and I asked him a question. I actually paid to ask him a question. And he's like, dude, what you're dealing with, it's actually really easy to overcome. Why don't we jump on a quick call and we can talk about it?
Okay.
And just him saying that to me was like, oh, cool. This is easy to overcome. And I kind of did that. So what are you focusing on right now in your business? I wanted to kind of highlight that you're in the single family space, right? And what does the team look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off multifamily back in the day. Good story for sure. But right now, what we have is a pretty concise, kind of tight team. Our main exit strategies, we're in the single family space. We're in North Texas and Houston, and we do some virtual stuff. But to be honest, we're not the best at it, but we're okay at it. Our primary profit drivers are wholesales and flips, with our secondary ones being wholesales. Once in a while, we'll stumble on a commercial deal. So we did some self-storage about a year and a half ago, made a ton of money on it, but it's definitely a separate piece of the business that, I'll be honest, we made money on it because we bought it right. We didn't make money on it because we were good operators, because that took away from the business, the wholesale and the flip business that was making good money. So I bought it really well. We kind of cleaned it up a little bit and then passed it off and made it that way. So the main, I actually have it on my computer screen usually, our main business motto is just focus on what we're good at. So we really try to drill down on the aspects of our business that we like and expand from that base. And that keeps us kind of in our lane, where we're not blindsided by stuff that, we're not trying to not do stuff, but we're trying to do stuff that really optimizes that. So that's the business. We pick up rentals too. So that's we definitely pick up good rentals in the past couple of years. That's the main focus. Single family. Nice. We're good at it. We're good at managing it. We're good at buying it. We're good at the seller marketing. We're good at negotiating it, and we're good at managing the rentals. The reason for that is because I like the liquidity of the product. I like the flexibility of the lending environment. And fundamentally, I like the fast turnover. I don't like being in long, drawn-out deals, even if I can make a lot more money on a single transaction doing them. So that's why I built the business, and I love working on it. I don't really like working in it all the time, but that's always a transitional thing. In terms of the team, so it's actually changed quite a bit in the past year. Directionally, it's always been pretty good. My wife is my business partner and has been since we got married 8 years ago and moved to Dallas. And then we actually partnered up with some other guys that have been on the market quite a while. And so we provide the business structure and the kind of organization, and they provide a lot more of the hands-on salesy stuff because they like doing it. That's their motivating thing. They like that aspect of it. So 2 guys there. One does most of the project management, and then one guy does the sales development or the sales team building, and also kind of manages and oversees the dispo. We have 2 people in acquisitions roles, 1 person in dispo, and then an ops guy that helps do all the crap that I can't figure out. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty sizable team for a wholesale operation. I love kind of the idea of staying focused, right? It's easy, I feel like, in our business. When you jump into real estate, you jump in, a lot of people read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Which is pretty common on my interviews and the people I'm talking to. They read Rich Dad Poor Dad and they open up and they realize, man, I need to be an opportunity seeker, which I don't think is a bad thing, right? We're in this business to look for opportunities so we can make money and we can achieve the life we want. But one of the, if I might say, the double-edged sword side of that, right, is there's shiny object syndrome, right? Everybody has a favorite thing. Everybody wants to do that $2 million deal or that development or that apartment complex or that storage unit or that, right? And you can kind of get spread out. So, man, I applaud you for just saying, this is what we're good at. This is what we're focused at. And this is where we're going. And then realizing your own likes and dislikes and not feeling, if I might put it on there, not feeling guilted for not wanting to do that, right? There's so much guilt when you're like, man, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And it's like, no, it's like, let me build the business I want. So a follow-up question to that, before we kind of dive back, because I want to hear I really like the journey and who you were and who you become. So, but how do you, being focused in that area, maybe not how, maybe it's more what drives you to stay disciplined in your lane, right? You've mentioned a lot. You mentioned on our other podcast, you mentioned here, like, we stay in our lane and we focus on what we're really good at. Like, what drives you to be disciplined to do that?
God, that's a good question. The experience of having failed when I moved out of my lane.
Okay. Dude, that's real. That's real. What did that look like?
And I like getting paid. I like getting paid really well. And I like getting paid for shit that I know how to do. I think those are the two things that really motivate it. A quick segue, actually, it's a great example right now. And yeah, and I like doing stuff I like doing, I guess, because we've had multiple businesses in the past, and financially, I suppose we could make them all a success if we wanted to. But one quick example, late last year, I thought I was going to go be an entrepreneur and do a battery store of all the dumb things, because I like the margins. I like the product. Every car needs a battery, like car batteries, not like AA's and stuff. Yep. And it makes a lot of sense. And I thought, okay, here's the downsides. The downsides are an operator. And the margins are really good, but we got to move a lot of product at a low price point to make money on it. So like, well, I mean, we got an operator that's going to be good. Well, he's not as good as we thought. And we think we have a good plan for moving a lot of inventory and a lot of product because we have a good supplier and we know the market on the sales side. So we'll just knock it out and do it. Well, yeah, we tried that for about 6 months, kind of looked around, go, I'm not making any goddamn money for the effort that we're putting into this. If we sell now, we'll make a loss, or we can keep going and make it profitable if we want to. But how much capacity is that going to take of mine to make that profitable? Yeah. So that's what I say when, like, I get the shiny object thing too. I try stupid shit. And then sometimes stupid shit pays off really well. But more often than not, if it's really outside of your, I don't want to say capacity, because you can definitely do it. Like, it's not a complex business. But if it's outside of your main core skill set that's driving profit for you on this side, then doing this takes away from this. So build this better and keep going farther down that road. So that was I haven't even really talked about that. That's my biggest failure in the past couple of years. Is like, let's try a battery store because the margins are awesome, the product's easy, and what could go wrong, right? Well,
if I've learned anything, you can absolutely go broke trying a good idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can. There's so many variables there, and like what you said, like focusing on what you're good at, and sometimes the new thing, it might be a good opportunity, and it might be a good opportunity for somebody, but if it takes you away, all of a sudden your actual income comes down, right? And it's like, and you're not super good. There's a book I like a lot. It's by it's called The Laws of Human Nature. Why can't I think? It's up here. Or maybe I moved it over here.
I'm trying to compare bookshelf size. I got more at home too, dude. It's not a competition. I only got like 6 or 8 up here.
There you go. Hey, it's I went through a crazy spell. I was looking for it. There it is. The Robert Greene. And he talks about like the law of grandiosity, right? And the idea is, you know what, I had the Midas touch on this thing. Like, I'm doing really well here. So no matter what I touch, I should do great at. But that's not how life works. Yeah. Right? It's like, I'm really good at this because I spent 10 years learning how to do this crap. Why do I think I'm going to be able to touch this and get the same result that I spent 10 years doing there? Yeah. And I think that's really smart, guys. Like, one of the things I've seen in 10 years in real estate, and for you guys are out there on your journey, especially if you're starting here, and even if you're getting more and more experienced, is, you know, you learn and you get better, right? And people fall out of the business. And one of the reasons people fall out of the business is they never truly get focused. They never truly get focused. They never actually dive in and build a business and really focus on one particular strategy, figure out the marketing for it, figure out the talking, figure out what that looks like. So guys, if you've got like 15 ideas, I recommend just writing them all out and literally narrowing all of them down to one and just focusing on that and just put some blinders on and go. So let's transition to your story. So take me back. I don't remember, and I apologize, I don't remember when it started for you. But where did real estate start for TJ? And going through that and then transitioning into, I guess, just where did it start for you, and how did your mindset impact what you decided to do?
No, absolutely. So I kind of had like 2 or 3 starts. And that's kind of a good way of looking at it, because the path to success really isn't linear. Now, it doesn't mean you should have setbacks all the way back to zero, but it's not a straight line. I got started in 06. My first actual deal, I was doing loans in California, and my first deal was 112 apartment units in Memphis, Tennessee. And I like to say the only thing wrong with buying stuff in 2006 is you don't necessarily know that 2008 is like right around the corner fixing to happen. So that was there's a lot of people that was a genuine learning experience. I don't like learning experiences because they generally cost you money, and that one cost a couple $1,000,000. From there, it was a good project. It was value add, 10% occupied when we got it up to 90%, and then the bottom kind of drops off the economy.
That was a commercial deal.
Yeah, 112 units. My second deal was actually 98 units. So not to be, I guess my second deal was actually smaller than my first deal. And both of them in the same submarket. So there were fundamental flaws with the submarket in that economy at that time. Very different than now. So it's hard to compare what would happen now in the similar circumstance. So that was my first deal. From there, kind of looked around and thought, well, shoot, I got to make some money. So moved back to Southern California. I went surfing for a long time and kind of thought about it. Started doing a couple houses here and there, and didn't really have like a volume mindset in, what is that, like probably 2009, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Just didn't really have a volume mindset because of the time I didn't know people in the market that were doing that kind of thing. And, thought we made okay money. And from there, got married and decided to move to Texas because we got tired of the weather in San Diego. So we're like, oh, let's move to Texas and let's go to Dallas for the weather's nice. And from there, just kind of, now that's where the fun journey actually, that's where it actually kind of started going. Instead of like that, it started going a little bit more like that. But even that was, not a linear path, because you have this idea of what you're going to have. And, sometimes it takes more to get there than you thought, or sometimes you get there and you didn't want it once you got there.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. Right. And you've alluded a couple times now to, it's not a linear path.
Yeah.
So what is, and we talked about going this direction with learning how to walk, right? The question I have for you is like, what is something that happened or what did happen to cause you not to be able to walk?
Mm-hmm.
How did that impact your business as you're growing it? What happened to your business? What happened to you personally? And like, how did that whole process, what was that like? And how did that whole process impact your specific journey in real estate?
Yeah. You know what? It changed everything. It really did. And it's kind of a fun story. So a recurring theme, I guess, in everyone's business is my favorite John Wayne movie. And we haven't talked about this, but his last John Wayne movie, he's talking to the kid. It's called The Shootist, right? Mm-hmm. And he's going to go out in a blaze of glory. He's talking to Ron Howard was the actor, the guy that's now the director or whatever, right? And he says, it's not about outdrawing the other guy. It's not about out shooting the other guy. That's not what gets you. It's the dumbass amateur that comes at you from the side that gets you that you didn't even see coming. And that's what happens in a market like 2008, 2009, because maybe you saw it coming a little bit, but you don't know how it's going to get you. That's what happens when you get into, maybe a new market, you don't know what you're doing, or try a new marketing strategy. All the stuff that you can see, you have known unknowns that you have some control over, but the unknown unknowns, as Donald Rumsfeld, I guess, used to say, you don't really know what they are. And that's what comes and gets you. So the probably second or maybe third hardcore reset was the big thing that got me. I was rock climbing a couple of days after my wife's birthday. I did all the stuff wrong that you're not supposed to do in your first year of marriage. So get married right, and you can survive all that. Get married wrong, and I don't know, good luck. So we got married, moved to Dallas. She quit her job and bought a new house, started a new business, and then had a catastrophic life-changing injury where I fell while rock climbing and shattered my back right here in the middle. And woke up, didn't wake up in the hospital, but woke up, and the hospital basically said, you're probably never going to walk again. They didn't tell me that, which is probably good, because I wasn't in a very good mental space for a minute. They told my wife that, And she didn't tell me they told her that for a while. That was probably really, really good, because fortunately they were wrong. And
I mean, you're standing there right now, which is awesome.
I like the standing. That's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I spent in Dallas, kind of funny. In Dallas, I spent 2 weeks in the hospital here in the ICU, and then in like some kind of recovery thing.
So hold on. Sorry to interrupt. When was this? Just to kind of put a stamp in the ground.
8 years ago, 7 years ago.
7 years ago. Okay.
2014.
Ago. Okay. 2014. Okay. Keep going.
I think that's 8. And right about this time of year, I got an anniversary coming up.
There you go.
I'll write something motivational on Facebook for folks.
There you go.
And again, life-changing. So let's start over. No, let's not start over. But the predicate was like a burst fracture where the bones collapsed on the spinal cord from getting crushed. And then that causes pressure, causes inflammation, causes swelling. And then that affects everything from a lower level. And the problem is you don't know how much it affects it. So a complete injury means that there's no possibility of any kind of recovery whatsoever. Like it doesn't happen. And then an incomplete injury, fortunately, which is what I had. It's one of the only times in life you want to be incomplete, is, there's recovery potential, but you don't know what it is. And fortunately, I was in the second boat, but they said it was a pretty bad break, and they didn't think I'd have a lot of recovery. Like, well, that kind of sucks. Fortunately, I was younger by 8 years, I guess, and fell while rock climbing, so not in horrible shape. Got a little chubby afterwards, but anyway, fell while rock climbing. So I was conditioned already to accept a lot of pain and a lot of tolerance. Spent 2 weeks in the hospital in Dallas, in Parkland. And then the cool thing was my insurance hadn't been changed to Texas yet from California. So they paid to fly me to San Diego, back home, where my insurance was still located at, because I'd only been out here about 6 months and just hadn't got to changing it. So medical Learjet, pretty neat, right? My first time flying private. I'm horizontal, and they gave me some morphine to knock me out. It was really pleasant. I fly to San Diego, spend 8 weeks, 2 months in the hospital out there, another month in recovery, like outside the hospital, doing like outpatient stuff. And then by the end of that, I'm kind of able to walk a little bit. So the mindset changing thing is, don't listen to professionals, because they don't always know all the answers to your specific circumstances. You want to listen to them, and you want to take their advice as guidance. But if I'd heard, oh, you're probably never going to recover all the way, then I probably wouldn't have, or if I'd actually taken that advice. So that dictates a lot of things. The second thing is, listen to the people that are on your side. So when I got to San Diego, the therapist, you have therapy 3 hours a day, and then actually I like begged the doctor to let me work out in the gym for another hour in the evening, like 3 times a week. So you sit down with the therapist and say, well, what are your goals? And I said, well, a little bit before Thanksgiving, I want to walk out of the hospital before the end of the new year, before the new year. And a good therapist is going to say, oh, no problem. Well, maybe that's a problem, but you know what? Let's see what we can do. A not so good therapist that you have for a substitute, they'll ask you, well, what are your long-term goals? And I said something stupid. I said, long-term, like I don't have long-term. What did she say? No, she said, what are your, I don't know what she said. Short-term goals, maybe. And I said, I want to play tennis in 6 months. And she literally laughed at me and said, that's not going to happen. That's not a realistic goal for you. So I didn't see her again, fortunately, because it messes with your mindset. And the good therapist and I worked our butts off. We had one single focus, which is what we started out talking about in real estate. We had one single focus, and the focus was work out a lot, try to get my legs to move, and try to walk out of the hospital by January 1st, December 31st, 2014, 15, I think it was. And did it, which was really cool. Barely. I was walking with a walker. I think it was a walker. I didn't have a cane yet. And it wasn't great walking, but it was doing it. That's and awesome. Then about 6-7 months later, I played some really, really, really shitty tennis with my wife, but we got the ball back and forth across the net a couple times. So the professionals don't know what your circumstances and what your potential are. You don't even know what your circumstances and potential are, because there's these external forces that hit you that you have to deal with and work through. And you don't really know how well you're able to deal with them until you're in the middle of it, focusing on one thing to deal with.
So how did that impact? Because I think that's powerful, right? I think there's a phrase that I've said to myself, TJ, that is sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, right? Sometimes you have to pull back in order to really move forward at the rate you were. How did if I might say, kind of coming to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
Going
I
through this,
really hit the ground running.
right? Right? Like going through this, even from a mindset perspective with what people are telling you and like learning this, how did this impact the way you approached real estate? Like, how did that impact the way you kind of jumped into your business? Or were you just ready to jump back into it? Like, did you learn something there that was different? Like unpack that for us.
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's acute stressors and there's long-term survivability of a like long-term stress event. And
key stressors?
No, and acute stressors. So like
okay.
a single event kind of stress. And you have to have that in some respects in order to grow in a really fast-paced way. So from the back accident, before that, nothing else mattered. We had a couple flips going in Dallas. One of them lost money. One of them made some money, and one of them broke even. I think we only had 3 at the time. We had household bills, so none of that stuff mattered. The only thing that mattered was let's walk, and let's work out and make sure we can walk. Because if we don't walk, quite literally, I don't know what the other option is for me. I'm a surfer, scuba diver, rock climber, mediocre golfer. Like if I can't do any of that shit, I don't know what my life looks like after that, and I don't know. I can't see beyond that, and I'm not sure why I can't see beyond that because there might not be anything beyond that for me. So that you put yourself in that kind of space. And you really have one thing to do, and it's be successful, or that's it. Now, you don't translate that directly in business because you have other obligations, but you take a piece of that mindset of here's what I want to do, and I want to do it really, really well. And if I spend, it was only 3 months in the hospital, but I can talk about it. Like I remember almost every day of the 3 months. It's the strangest thing, right? If you spend 3 months, you can change the trajectory of your entire life actually pretty quickly in business or in life. And that's what people don't realize. You can work your butt off. You can work at 125, 130% of your actual capacity for 3 months. And then you drop down to where you should be, about 90%, so that you can take some time off and relax. So what that means for other folks in the business world is if you have something that you want to do. So for us, we were broke after the hospital, like literally. Came back here, didn't want to get back in.
All of your income, I'm assuming, just stopped.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We didn't make money for 6 months. 3 months in the hospital, another 3 months actually pretty much in the hospital, and then another 3 to kind of figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So we did something really stupid. We built a construction company, which as some guy that can't hardly walk is probably not the smartest idea, but we saw it as a way to make money in the Dallas market. We knew a lot of investors, so we did construction for newer investors on their houses. We scaled that business and went from 0 in sales to $1.1 million in production in our first year in business. And the only way you do that is by taking that same mindset that I had in the hospital about here's our only focus. We're not even looking at other stuff. We're not looking at flips. Now, in retrospect, more financial, like probably should have looked at flips more, but we weren't in the right. That's a mindset thing. That's not a focus and business development thing. And did that. Now, the problem with that business is the margins are not fantastic. They're about 15% in the construction business. And it's a lot of work and a lot of hassle and a lot of oversight from other people impacting your business. So we did that for a couple of years and then finally kind of got back into real estate. And then from real estate, we took the same focused mindset of let's drive that and let's push it to make it happen. And that's kind of where we are. So that's where I'd like to say, like, it's been successful, but there's definitely ups and downs on the success curve.
You know, as you're kind of going through that, right? And that staying focused, and I think there's a phrase, I mentioned it before. It says it's like we underestimate what we can do a year, but we overestimate what we could do in a year, but we underestimate what we could do in 18 months, right? Mm-hmm. Or in 5 years.
Yeah.
What you just said,
it's almost the opposite, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. What you just said is like, if you take 3 months, I actually think this is really powerful, because if you take 3 months and you said if you operate at 130% of your capacity for 3 months, which means you're focused. If I might be bold, even to the guys who are listening, you're actually putting in effort. Because I think a lot of us, we go to work and we're not actually putting in effort, right? You're like, yeah, I worked for 8 hours, but you only made 20 calls. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, dude, make 400 calls this week and let's talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your real work ethic look like? And how much
and really quick,
is
and
narrowly?
What you do is you also increase your baseline capacity by working above your capacity for a time. So that's one thing that definitely happens. So if you spend 3 months, and if you have some stupid goal of 3 months, I want to buy 1,000 units in 3 months, but I've never done commercial and I don't have a residential business at all, and I just want to do it. Honestly, good luck. I've never seen that happen. Hey, you might be the first. That's awesome. But if you have, hey, I know this business and I know I have the capacity to do something that's going to push me to a new level, and if I work for 3 months and try to build that level, then it increases your baseline, because now you have different things in place that you put in order to facilitate this higher level of production. So now what had been your maybe 100% capacity, like sustainable capacity, is maybe now a 90% sustainable capacity. So your sustainable capacity goes up by pushing yourself and working your butt off for an acute period of time. So for example, I walk out of the hospital and I was working probably 125, 130% of my capacity. Only things I was doing was working out, trying to walk, and may or may not be mixing like painkillers and some vodka drinks. But that's my only things I have to do. After that, I'm watching Netflix and I'm sleeping. That's it. Work out, sleep, work out, sleep. You can't do that sustainably, but you can do it for 3 or 4 months. And then in business, again, I think you definitely said it right. A lot of people, I made 10 calls. Like, really? Yeah, you're in the office all day and you only made 10 calls. But if you train yourself to make those bunch of calls, now you understand that, okay, my sustainable was here and now it's up here.
Wow, that's so powerful. I've not heard anybody explain it like that, but that's so powerful, because what you're doing is, when you push, it's not an isolated event. It impacts the future. So guys, like if you guys are jumping into real estate or anything that you want to go after, that amount of effort, I can totally see this in my life. There's so much learning. It's almost like blazing a path. And once some of that path is already blazed, you don't have to do it again, right? You don't have to set up those things in place. You don't have to set up a website. You don't have to set up what marketing source, where am I pulling the leads, and all this extra learning. If you operate at a massive capacity, whatever you're going into, now all of that's set up, you can step back, and now it's just maintenance, right? It's just maintaining that maintenance level. Dude, that's TJ, that's really, really, really powerful. I think guys, go back and just like rewind 10 minutes and go back and listen to that, because that's super, super awesome. How does that, and I want to touch a little bit on, I know you've got a mastermind group.
Mm-hmm.
How does that philosophy impact, or how has it impacted maybe the way you're helping your students, right? Like whether it's growing their business, because I know you're all about scaling and working on the business, or getting in. How has that philosophy of increasing that baseline impacted even the people you're helping in your community?
So the thing that helps probably the most is the focus on what you're good at aspect of it, because that's the easiest way to increase your baseline capacity. So people come in and they say, I want to try all these different marketing channels or whatever to increase my lead flow or my deal flow. So, well, what are you doing now? And why are you not doing more of that now? Are you at the capacity are you at 120% of your capacity in that one channel? So why do you want to add a bunch of shit you don't know anything about and try that out? Why are you going to compete with me? If you're really good, simple example. We don't have anyone else that does bandit signs, but if you're making a buttload of money putting out bandit signs, why do you want to now jump into PPC and compete with me on the PPC field? I'm really good at it. You're not going to be really good at it, not starting out. It's just the way it is. Now, you can build up to being really good at it, and I think that's a great channel. You should probably go there, maybe eventually, but optimize what you're doing first so that you can increase that baseline, and then figure out where your critical kind of points of failure are. So are you taking every call yourself if you're a one-man show? Is your acquisitions guy actually responding to calls and actually following up? And the thing about growth in my company is I've noticed we lie to ourselves, I think, and we said this actually yesterday, didn't we? We lie to ourselves that we think that we're working at 100% of obviously our capacity all the time, and that's not true. We're working at about 75% of our capacity. And then we think if we hire someone, they're only going to work at about 75% of our capacity because that's all they're capable of. But the thing is, if they have a binary singular task and their task is buying houses and doing acquisitions, if that's my job, I'm gonna not take the call because I don't want to talk to that guy because I don't want to go walk through another smelly house. If it's their job to take that call and walk through the smelly house, you might be better at converting the deal, you might be better at negotiating the deal, but you're only doing it now, even yourself, 70% of the time because you don't want to deal with it. So their actual 70%, of your capacity is probably a little bit higher than your actual capacity because they're doing the thing that you're not doing. Even if you're better at doing the thing, they're actually doing the thing. And we talk about that all the time from a business development perspective in the mastermind. Like, are you doing everything you need to do? And then if you're not, who can you put in and who can you have do the thing that you're not doing?
Dude, that's awesome. So one of the guys I've helped out, he has a YouTube channel now. He's doing really, really well. He actually worked with me for a little while, went off. He's focusing on being an agent. He's also an investor. And one of the things he did is before he was doing a lot of cold calling, right? And so he's on the phone a lot. He was just literally banging the phone, talking to people, doing all that. Well, he's like, you know what? I want to transition and go into this YouTube stuff, right? I want to get leads a different way.
Nice.
And so we talked. He's like, hey, I'm going to join these masterminds and I'm going to go this direction. And we were going back and forth. And he's a good friend of mine. I've helped him grow his business a number of times, and he's been part of my mastermind. He's like, you know, I want to get really good at social media. So he went and joined a specific social media group, got into high level, got connected with some guys, and literally created a formula. And it took him about a year and a half, just like what you're saying. When he got started, you know, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's so much you don't know that you don't know. You're the way you talk to him. Well, a year and a half in, he decided to really focus and just take small little steps. I was talking to him early on. He's like, dude, I'm just trying to come up with content 3 times a week. Like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
Jeez.
And
I hear that.
then it started snowballing. And I was just talking to him. I think it was a week ago yesterday, actually. So he's like, dude, I don't remember the numbers, but he broke down the numbers of people watching, how many leads he's getting from his form. And he's like, man, these people, they already know what my process is like. They already know what I'm looking for. They already trust me.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's loving it. He's like, dude, I don't have to pound the phone anymore. I literally have, I think he said 175,000 coming from that lead source. And now he's doing, you know, 800,000 to $1.5 million homes that he's listing. Right.
Yeah.
And the whole point, though, is exactly what you're saying, is it's kind of like he took that time to increase his capacity and really focus. Well, now his maintenance level is a lot less. And I think even with your group that you're part of and you're setting up, that focus on, okay, what do we do? What are you going to stay focused on and committed to, rather than, yo, let me do all my capacity, focus on 10 different things, and none of them's at an optimal level. Man, let's focus on our business and go down this route. I think that's awesome. So what is, you come out, you focused, you built this single family, you transitioned out of the construction.
Yeah.
You're wholetailing, which for you guys who don't know, that's purchasing a property, cleaning it out, putting it on the market and listing it as is, right? Or do you do anything different?
Depends. In Texas, we got foundation issues. So there's an entire conversation. Essentially, yes.
Okay, cool. So you're essentially taking it down and just relisting it and cleaning it up. I would imagine there's probably like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 cleanup or something.
Yeah. We target 4 levels of wholesale buyers. A conventional buyer at the highest level will pay the most, and then a flipper buyer at the bottom level will pay the least. And there's kind of 2 in the middle, cash flow and like a seller finance buyer.
Okay, cool.
And so we target that and then repair to that price point.
Dude, that's actually really cool. I've not heard that. That's I like the 4 stuff.
I think I invented it.
What would you say? You've come out of that. You've switched into the single family. Now with your focus, and I'm trying not to ask the same question. I'm trying to springboard off of it. But as a result of that, what do you think? You've been in this business now for a number of years. And if you're like me, I think one of the things we probably share is there's been a lot of players who've come and then they went, right? And they're no longer here. I know a lot of guys I started off with are not doing the business anymore. What do you think has sustained you and something you chose that is like a really good decision and that you've kind of formulated, you've put it into a process that has allowed you the longevity of lasting from 2006 to today, which is, I mean, a 14-year process. Obviously there was ups and downs, but what's something that's you've kind of held true to that's helped sustain you?
You know, do the work. Like, know what you're getting into and just do it. Know what it takes for success, know what it takes for failure. And one thing that's actually just higher than that is it's your responsibility. The failures that I see in the business, and it's not to victim blame because deals go sideways and people lose money and new people have to learn somehow. But the guys that think they're good or the whatever, they blame someone else for the negative outcome of the event. And that's a very toxic mindset to have. That's incredibly destructive to the business. And it doesn't facilitate business growth or personal development. A corollary to that, I think, is if you fail forward and fall up, you didn't do that. Like that's a market dynamic. That's you got the one buyer that really wanted that house. You can't scale that. So know what is actually in your capacity and know what can be attributed to you from a success standpoint, but everything can be attributed to you from a failure standpoint, even if you go through something like 2008. Probably too big a deal for a 24-year-old kid. Class D distressed property. Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't the best idea. So the failures are 100% your responsibility. Your successes are a combination of your skill, your ability, your team, what you put together, all the stuff that you have built, and then know how much of the success can be attributed to stuff outside your control. Because then you stay humble and then you stay in business. Too many people don't do those two things. They'll blame, the contractor screwed me. Like, well, did you give him a scope? No, he gave me a scope. Well, are you smart enough to read a scope? It's not about smart, but are you like sophisticated enough to read the scope and know what's in there? Well, no, I just trusted him. Well, there's your point of failure. And that's so simple. It happens all the time. But from a business building standpoint, same kind of thing. Oh, I just hired all these guys and then I just had them do the stuff. And like, well, did you teach them how to do the stuff? Maybe.
That reminds me in Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership. I don't know if you've read that one or not. It's incredible. It's incredible. And that's exactly what he talks about is, this is my team. So it's my fault. If I'm the owner, everything's my fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I work for somebody, everything's not my fault.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have a guy above me that is actually more responsible than I am. Now, if I want to move up, I have to assume more responsibility. And
Absolutely.
I personally have a philosophy that says the more responsibility we assume, the happier we actually will be in life.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to get down there. That's
I'm one of those guys that I don't value happiness because I don't think happiness is a goal. I think being productive and accomplishments are a goal. And I think a subset of accomplishing these goals leads to happiness. But I like people, do you want to be happy? Like, I don't really give a shit. Like, I'm always happy. I'm always my version of happy.
Yeah. Well, because I think it allows us to give ourselves permission to wake up and be like, you know what? I don't really feel that good today, but it doesn't influence what I do. Right. It's just, okay, cool. Like this is part of the human experience, mm-hmm. right? Like being human is not being happy. That means it creates color in life that when I am actually having a very joyful experience, it's like, dude, it gives depth to the fact of, man, this is actually really good when I experience a range of stuff. So we don't have to go down that direction.
That's right.
But I do think that is really powerful because I think it's a really powerful way of saying, you know what, this is all me and this business, right? That I own this. Where's my points of failure, like what you said? And what can I bolster and get better at and use as a learning experience so I can grow? Because the more responsibility we take, the more freedom we have, right? If I take responsibility for even my team's failure, a person on my team's failure, and that might mean that I have to let them go, right? But I'm taking responsibility in my stewardship of this company and saying, you know, I need the right person in the right seat rather than this. Or it might be, you know, I failed as a leader. I wasn't clear and I didn't give them proper direction. They do have the capacity. Mm-hmm. Let me be clear and give them proper direction so we can achieve and taking that on us. So
yeah, I think so.
Man, I think that's awesome. I think that is a really good mindset, guys, especially if you come into this industry, because as you get into real estate, as you get into any industry, as you jump into entrepreneurship, it is a competitive environment. It's not competitive in the sense, and I think this is where people will get mixed up. What I'm not saying is me and TJ are going to go head to head and see who wins. Mm-hmm. But what does happen is you're almost competing against yourself and you're competing against the other options. Mm-hmm. And so when you put yourself guys out there, sit down and say, okay, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to provide? Kind of put blinders on to what other people are doing and saying, this is how I want to provide a service to the marketplace. Once you do that, then open up your eyes and look around and saying, are other people doing that? There's a great book. Actually, you pointed it out. I have it over here. $100 million offers, right? It's just the idea of figuring out what am I willing to do and providing that. So I think, dude, I think that's amazing and really a really good mindset to have coming into it. And to piggyback, kind of a final, finish of that story. What do you think? Where did you learn that mindset from? Just to kind of do it, because I think that's a lot of this is just the way we look at the world. It's not getting too excited. It's not getting too depressed. It's not letting that judge what we do. It's a very stoic mentality. It doesn't mean don't have emotions, but it does mean let me control my experience. Was that from a book? Was that from philosophy? Was it from family? Was it from growing up? Where did that come from?
I don't read a lot of business books. I have read a bunch in the past. I think I first started to figure it out laying on my back in the hospital, figuring out, like, contemplating, okay, if I walk out of here, then I have this potential in my life. If I don't walk out of here, literally thinking about, well, like, I don't even know if I'm going to bother. And I think I took that kind of perspective and just applied it, because even if you walk out, you're not happy. You're not walking well, right? So it wasn't about a happiness. It was about this accomplishment thing. And that's where I kind of started to get the idea of that. I think the failures have definitely led to the idea of, hey, whatever happens, you don't want to be fatalist or thinking that things fall apart, but the failures kind of define who you are and how you live through them. That's kind of cliche to say, but what I mean by that is, going back to the gym analogy, and walking, I literally couldn't, like, lift anything. I couldn't lift a bar. And like I said, I topped out at 3 plates deadlifting in my late 30s, which I thought was pretty good. But it's not the objective. It's not the objective is the thing. The objective is, how do I get to the thing? And then if we're chasing a high, if we're chasing happiness, if we're chasing, like, that thing, then we're chasing the wrong thing. We're not chasing the journey, because you can lose a bunch of money. You think you're building generational wealth for your kids or your grandkids or something down the road. But if you're not there teaching them the skills, 100% they're going to fuck it up. Like, the data says that. And if you are teaching them the skills, then, like the John Wayne analogy, something is going to come at them from the side anyhow and mess stuff up in a way that you hadn't been able to foresee. So if you learn the skills in your own life and then transmute the skills as well as you can to the next generation, to your kids or whatever, then you don't worry about the outcome that's outside your control, because it's outside your control. It doesn't mean you don't try to stay educated. It doesn't mean you're oblivious to what's coming at you. But the stuff that you have no control over, you just realize you don't have any control over it. And it's very liberating and freeing in your life entirely. It probably keeps you from killing yourself if you can't walk out of the hospital, to be honest with you, because it's the stuff that's outside your control. And if you learn the skills to take the journey and you pass down the skills to take the journey, then the product, the outcome, is inside your control to a certain extent, but the negative outcomes don't catastrophically affect you. I actually learned that from my mom, but it's kind of a roundabout way.
That's powerful. So I'm kind of go off track. I'm a really big fantasy reader. So I love fantasy books. I actually play D&D on a weekly basis. I've actually paused for a little bit, but there's a book series called the Stormlight Archives. Okay. It's one of my favorite. And in the story, there's what's called Knight's Radiance, okay? And they have what they call the immortal words, and they have to swear these oaths, and when they swear these oaths, it gives them more power, essentially, okay? I'm kind of butchering it, so forgive me, diehard fans, okay? But I pulled up the immortal words, and I think it ties into what you said. The first oath, there's multiple oaths for different things. We won't get into that. But it's life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. And this is what they consider the immortal words. And I think what you're talking about really kind of ties that in, right? So you could swear those oaths and be a radiant, is what I'm saying, TJ. You know?
I'm down.
If you have superpowers that come with it, give me the secret.
I'm down.
But I think to an extent, that is a huge part of just going through the journey and being willing to say, man, it's not. I think we get so caught up on these binary realities. Am I successful? Am I not? Oh, I'm not going to be a success. Oh, I am going to be. And it's like life isn't binary. Life is a journey. Life is a process. And being willing to focus on that, I think is awesome. So I want to transition. So at the end of every one of these podcasts, I do a speed round. Okay. I like to do is like a speed round of value, a whole bunch of quick questions. And so if you are ready, I am going to hit you. You ready?
Are you gonna hold up like ink blots or something? And I say,
I've got these pictures, so you can do it. So that's awesome.
Let's go.
All right. So if you are on an island and you could only look at your business for 5 or 10 minutes, or you had a phone call and there was only one metric you could track in your business to see if it was on track or not on track, what would that be?
Cost per contract. Nothing else matters.
Cost per contract. I love that. If you were to recommend a book, obviously I'm a big reader. If you were to recommend a book to a real estate investor, could be new or old, a book that you would say has impacted you significantly. It does not have to be a real estate book. It can be. What would you recommend?
You're going to hate this one. There's a biography on King Edward III in England written by Ian Mortimer, who is a amazing history. So I have a degree in history, so I have an affinity for it. And I think it really goes into the king's character and his leadership style and ability. And so I don't read a lot of business books. I read a lot of history books because I think we incorrectly attribute our values to other cultures and other societies in the past. And I think that's a very dangerous mindset to have. But I think there's a lot to learn from how they dealt with the struggles that they had at the time.
What was the book again? What's it called?
I think it's called The Perfect King. I read it about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
It's about King Edward III in England. He was, so if you watch Braveheart, the bad guy king's grandson.
Okay. Dude, I have not heard of that. That's exciting. I'm going to look it up.
It's pretty thick. It's not going to tell you how to optimize your KPIs, and it's not going to tell you how to hire people. But I like biographies, and I like historical, just history books.
So I read, not to get too far off on a tangent, I read a biography by Napoleon by Andrew Roberts. And it's thick too. Most biographies are. That's why people stay away from them. But I think what it does is it shows you the journey. And I think that's so impactful, right? Sometimes you read a sales book and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to make sure all these calls happen. But then when you listen to someone actually do a sales call, you're like, oh, that's what it looks like. There's a massive difference. And I think that's why reading biographies are so powerful, is you're like, man, this is this guy's life.
You know why I like biographies? Because they die in the end. That sounds very morbid, right? but then they can be judged, right? Then they can be judged 1,000 years later by us, but then they can be judged by their kids, by their effect on the world, by what's actually happening after them. And it's kind of sad, right? You get into it and you're reading about this dude. He was an awesome dude. He's like, shit, he died. Oh wait, he died in 1153. Like he's been gone a while, but I'm still reading about him. I think that's why I like biographies. I don't like.
That's really cool.
But yeah.
Dude, that's really cool.
I bet you hadn't got that answer before.
Hey, absolutely. No, that was good, man. That was really good. What do you do to intentionally network or mastermind with other business owners and investors?
Oh, geez. So I've been part of a couple like paid masterminds. I think there's a lot of value in that for sure. In the local Dallas market, we didn't get into it, but I think about 25% of our business is referral business from wholesalers who send us stuff. And then probably about 10% of our dispo is actually with referral connections with some of the other wholesalers in town. Again, we don't wholesale a ton, but so we do a quarterly big mixer. We do a monthly paid intimate mixer that gets about 100 people. And then we do the mastermind kind of coaching thing. And it's all three of those have a slightly different purpose, but all of them are focused on giving people the tools and the ability to expand their business, or if they're in a hole, get themselves out of a hole they don't want to be in and grow their business. And obviously what we get out of it is we get referral business, but we also get to see the growth in other people. And I think the growth in the other people is the fun part. So we do those three things.
Dude, that's awesome. Guys, that's it's so important just to be in relationship with others. Get through this. I'm trying not. I feel like I could springboard off any one of these questions, and we could have a full conversation. So
yeah, we'll schedule a second podcast if you want.
There you go. There you go. How much a year do you spend on personal development?
Shoot, I don't even know how to qualify it. Too much. Probably too much.
Would you say it's in the $1,000 to $2,500 range, the $2,500 to $10,000 range, or the $10,000 plus?
Oh, 10,000 plus. No problem.
Okay. Would you say it's over 30?
Last year it was.
Last year? Nice.
Yeah, last year it was. This year I'm not sure.
This is a reoccurring theme, and I don't want to stop here. And guys, to be successful, as you are making more money, we need to invest in ourselves, right? Going and learning and listening to podcasts, going to YouTube channels, joining masterminds like TJ's and mine, going to these sites, looking at free courses and other courses, reading books, reading biographies. It's all part of the journey in increasing our skills. And dude, that's powerful, right?
Part of that you go to figure out what someone else is doing and can do. And part of it, if you're open-minded, you go to say, oh, look at that dude. He's doing all this shit. Wow, that sounds like a real pain in the butt for the outcome he just said that he had. I don't think I want to do that. Which one brings more value? Learning how to do one thing that's going to get you one more deal that makes you $30K in 1 year? Probably huge. Learning one thing that is going to cost you a lot of operational drag in your business that you don't want to fuck with? I hope I'm allowed to cuss. On this side, maybe not doing that. They both bring us an amazing level of value. One you can at least quantify. The other one you can't. But you need to go at it with an open mind and figure out what you actually want to do and get out of it.
That's really powerful. If you lost your everything today,
piece of cake. I've done that twice.
What would you do?
Are we going homeless, like under a bridge?
Let's say your business went bankrupt. You still have your house, right? But you went bankrupt, right? You still got a place to live, but you got to rebuild.
Actually, to be honest, I think my wife would probably get a job to cover our fixed expenses. I'd probably lose my country club, which is unfortunate because I spend a lot of time up there. So we're flat broke, but I got a house. At least I got a place to sleep. I would door knock the crap out of some doors and I would get some deals. And I would work probably 16 hours a day, 6 days a week to do that. I'd work at 130% of my capacity again. Assuming I still have a car, maybe I just build a construction company again. If I was absolutely homeless, lost everything, living under a bridge, I would get a gym membership to take a shower and to work out for my mental clarity. And I would get a job in a trade field. I would go do painting and just build from there. And in 3 years, I'd own the company or I'd start my own.
That's really good advice. TJ, man, I really appreciate you here. How can the audience connect with you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, no, piece of cake. All over Facebook. So TJ Kosen on Facebook. You can follow me or friend me if I still got any left. TJ Kosen on Instagram. And then we have tjkosen.com, which is kind of my personal, talks about me site. Yeah, it's interesting. Our mastermind and our community is reiaf.com. And it's pretty fun. We do some fun stuff in there.
TJ, man, thank you so much for your time and taking out and having the conversation. This has been really awesome. And you guys who are freaking listening, go back. There was some really, really strong nuggets in there. Thanks, TJ, man, so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Ronald. I really appreciate it.